Hello everyone and welcome to Jess in Japan. So first, are you interested in teaching English in Japan? So if so, stick around and I will talk about 5 topics that I wish I knew a little bit more about before moving to Japan to teach English. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing that I really wish I knew before coming to teach in Japan is how to learn a teacher's teaching style and strategies and adapt your style to theirs. And I think that's going to be a huge thing for teaching in Japan as an ALT, because you will be working with Japanese teachers of English, and usually you'll be working with quite a bit. It's not like you're just working with one teacher. You might work with 5 to 10 Japanese teachers of English per year, depending on how many schools that you work at as an ALT. And learning how to figure out what a Japanese teacher of English's teaching styles and strategies are, and learning how to adapt it into lesson plans that you make for them would end up being extremely beneficial in the long end, and just make your classes with them and your relationships with your JTEs and the students so much more smoother, because then they'll see that you are willing to adapt to them and incorporate their ideas and styles into your lesson plans for them and for their students. So I wish that this was a skill that I had honed down a lot faster when I first arrived here, and it was something that I knew I had to hone down before I got here. I think that would have been really beneficial my first year here as an ALT. Be adaptable, be flexible, and be willing to learn each of your JTE's teaching styles and strategies and use them in your lesson plans. But one other thing that I think would be really helpful to know about before teaching in Japan is the cultural norms that you might face at school that are very different from maybe teaching in school in the US or another country. One thing I was really shocked by was the fact that you can't share food with students depending on the teachers or the school's preference. I don't mind sharing my lunch with my students. Like, I'll have grapes or I'll have some little snacks that the kids can eat as well with me, and I'll put it in the center of the table and offer all my students. In the US, it's not a big deal. In Japan, however, they're like, oh no, you have to be careful with allergies. What if a kid gets sick if they eat the food that you gave them? So we can't do that. So I've had some schools that were totally fine with it. Like, I passed around my grapes and I shared grapes with all the kids. And then there were some schools that were just like, no, you can't do that at all. Please don't. If a kid gets sick, it's a bad thing. We can get in trouble. So that's just one example. Another example is cleaning time. So in Japan, students clean the school. There's no janitors to clean up the school. And so usually I like to help the kids during cleaning time. There's 10 minutes every day, usually, that the kids clean the school, and each kid is assigned to a specific area in the school. So I usually will hop around from classroom to classroom helping sweep or something like that. And some teachers were like, oh, thank you so much, you're being such a big help. And then some teachers were like, no, you don't need to do anything. Let the kids clean. It's the kids' responsibility to clean. So that was another big shocker to me. It's just getting used to the cultural differences and learning how to gauge what situation is best for what cultural norm. Is this school going to be okay with me sharing lunch with my kids? Or is this school not going to want me to help the students clean the classroom because they want them to have the responsibility of cleaning the classroom? I feel like that was another big shocker and a big learning thing for me, is you want to be helpful, but you don't want to over-help with cleaning classrooms. And as far as sharing food with kids, I get it. You don't want kids getting sick if they eat the food that you're offering them, because then you can get in trouble. But I did notice when I did share lunch with my kids that generally they really enjoyed it, and they were really appreciative of me being so opening and sharing with them. So those are some things I would keep in mind when trying to learn and adapt to cultural norms in schools. in Japan. Another thing that I think would be useful to know before teaching English in Japan is knowing how useful loanwords can be when teaching in class. So, for example, if you are using words that the students don't know, or maybe they are a little afraid it's too difficult, you can use loanwords and still be technically speaking English, because Japanese has a lot of English loanwords. For example, computer, influenza, or so on and so forth. So, that being said, I think using loanwords in class for comprehension is a great tool and makes students feel more at ease when you know that you can help make things more easier to understand and more relatable for the students, especially when making lessons or when trying to go over new vocabulary or grammar points in class. So I highly recommend being familiar with some loanwords when preparing lessons, and I think that will make it go a long way as far as ensuring that students can comprehend the lessons that you are preparing for them. So yeah, loanwords are a big help. And finally, I would say the final thing that I wish I knew before teaching in Japan is just knowing more about the status of ALTs and how they are viewed by other teachers in Japan. Okay, so what I mean by this is that as an ALT, an assistant language teacher, in Japan, you are not required to have a teaching certification from the Japanese government itself. You can come to Japan and teach English here with simply a bachelor's degree and nothing else. So with that being said, some teachers in Japan, I have realized, don't really view ALTs as legitimate teachers because we do not have a teaching credential, which is understandable. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not trying to discourage anyone from wanting to teach English in Japan. This is just kind of what I've noticed here, is some ALTs may not be viewed as legitimate teachers because we don't technically have a teaching certificate in Japan. On the other hand, there are some teachers that do consider us legitimate teachers because we do have qualifications. We have a bachelor's degree at least, master's degree, TESOL certification, TEFL certification, or an actual teaching credential from our home country. And therefore they say, you know what? Why not? They can qualify. So I can't speak for all Japanese teachers within the group of teachers that I've worked with or at the schools that I've worked at personally. It's just been my own experience so far that I've noticed some teachers do consider us actually legitimate teachers and some do not, which is fine. That's not something that we can change. And please don't get me wrong, I do encourage everyone to come to Japan to teach English abroad. If it's your dream to be an ALT, I highly recommend it. Please try it out by all means. This has just been my own experience so far, and I don't mean to discourage anyone in any way. And going off of that, I want to say that another huge thing that I wish I would have taken away from my research before moving to Japan is that no two ALTs are ever going to have the same exact experience here teaching in Japan, because everyone's experiences are going to be completely different, even if you're teaching at the same school but at two separate times. And I can confidently say this because I have been fortunate enough to compare my experiences at the same schools with other ALTs who have said, oh no, I didn't have that experience, or oh, this was different for me. So each situation at every school is going to be different for every ALT, and that it's going to make it impossible for you to do research before moving to Japan and saying, oh hey, this is exactly what's going to happen, or this is exactly what it's going to be like, because that might not be the case. So I would highly recommend to just keep that in mind before coming to Japan to teach, is that your experiences are going to be unique to you, just as anyone other ALT's experiences are going to be unique to them. You might have some similarities or some areas that you might say are very similar or you can relate to, but in the end, it's going to be very difficult to say that your experiences are exactly like another ALT's, even if you work at the same school or you work with the same teachers, because that can even vary year by year, and things do change year by year, so just keep that in mind. So those were my top 5 things that I wish I knew about before teaching English in Japan. I hope that you found them really insightful and useful, and if you are currently considering applying for a job as an ALT, whether it's in Japan or in any other country, I highly encourage you to do so. It's an amazing experience that is just mind-blowing, so I highly recommend just teaching English abroad in any country. But Japan is a pretty cool country to teach English in, so I highly recommend it. And yeah, I hope that you found it insightful and useful. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about teaching abroad or being an ALT in Japan, please leave a question or comment down below and I'll do my best to answer them for you. And if you have anything that you would like me to talk about in future videos, also leave a comment down below about future videos that you would like to see, and I'm all ears. So don't forget to subscribe, click that bell notification, that way you don't miss out on any of my videos or any traveling or adventures that I will do. And give this video a like, that way you help support me and show me some love. Give this video a like. Thank you so much, and I'll see you all very soon. I make videos every Sunday/Monday, so I'll see you next week. Bye!